Welcome to The Pound Perspective, presented by Nate Dogg Sports, a podcast based around discussions and debates about recent football, basketball, baseball, and MMA events. Now, here's your host, Nate Dogg.
And welcome back to The Pound Perspective. This was only supposed to be a UFC/boxing pod, but after all the madness today on Tuesday, I had to make this episode 37, so we hope you enjoy. If you're watching on video right now, you can tell it's just me today, solo pod. Like I said, it was just going to be about UFC 291 and Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence boxing match. Massive fight weekend, of course, for fighting fans. But today on Tuesday, we had a lot of craziness happen. Good news, bad news. So I'm going to go over all of it right now. So I'll be bouncing around between sports, so bear with me. This is just a massive news segment, and then we will get into all the stuff for UFC 291 and Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence. Let's start with massive news, though. We're going to start on some big-time deals that happen around all kinds of sports today. We're going to start with Jaylen Brown. Oh, my goodness. The Boston Celtics star Jaylen Brown has agreed to sign the richest deal in the NBA, a 5-year, $304 million Supermax contract extension. Yes, you heard that right, $304 million. That exceeds the two-time MVP Nikola Jokic's $276 million extension with the Denver Nuggets. Wow. That's a lot of money, man. A lot of money. I should have been a basketball player. Let's get into it, though. We're going to kind of just debate, did he earn that contract? Did he do enough to earn that contract? And I'll come out first things first and say this is a play to the market. And technicality-wise, yes, this man earned his contract. He earned every single nickel of that contract for the simple fact that he was an all-NBA player. Yeah, he was a second-team All-NBA player, but he still was an All-NBA player, and what that All-NBA player status allows you is that Supermax contract. We would see some other players that missed out on that contract be getting paid as well. This is a massive, massive deal and big-time news in the NBA because it's the first player to crack that $300 million mark. Everyone was talking about it over the offseason. Will the Celtics pull the trigger? Will they be the team to pull the trigger and keep that little dynamic duo over there, JT and JB together? A lot of people were saying they shouldn't. Some people say they should. I mean, they were right there this year. They were in the championship, the finals, the last year against the Warriors. So first things first, I just wanted to say it's a play to the market, and technicality-wise, he earned every single nickel of it. Like I was saying, the rumors, are they going to break up JTJB? This kills that. I'll tell you that. This kills those rumors because if you sign a guy to that much money, you are committing to him. You are committing to him fully for those 5 years. I think there was a no trade clause or a trade waiver, so he has the option to obviously waive the no trade clause. But like I said, you're not trading the guy if you're signing him to that kind of a deal. So that gives some Celtics fans some clarity on the direction where this team is going. I honestly thought they had clarity once they got rid of Smart and brought in Porzingis, but this definitely clears any more, murky waters over there in Boston. This is, and thirdly, this team has pretty much made that big dance, like I said, back-to-back seasons. They're a legit contender every year with that dynamic duo. Last year, technicality-wise, once again, we're going to use that word technicality-wise, statistically, they were the best duo in the league. They scored the most points. They put the most points together. They won the most games together, it felt like. So, when it comes to statistically, that duo was the best in the league. And then it comes down to, will that duo be able to win a championship together, though? We see these duos that are very, very good that can't pull off the championship. And it makes me wonder, is this another duo that can't get there? Can they reach, that destiny all those teams are setting out for once they start in the October? And I'm here to say that they can do it. If you can make a finals and be one game away, minutes away from, another finals appearance, And before that, you could make a case that the LeBron last year when with Cleveland, they should have won that game in Game 7. So there's 3 times that this duo has had opportunities, and 2 times that they should have been there, even though they came back from 3-1 against Miami, tried to come back from 3-1 last year against Miami. You could make the case both of those times they should have made it and should be in the finals 3 times. So if you're getting that close or even making it, I think you got something there. You got a heck of a group already over there. I love, I wasn't a big fan of the coach early on over there with the Celtics, but he grew on me throughout these playoffs. He's a, everyone knows he's a Greg Popovich, comes from that tree, and it's hard not to believe in a coach that comes from that tree. So for me, you gotta run it back, even though I was a little skeptical due to what I'm going to get into in a second. But when you look at it in the East, who's better than the Celtics? Like, legitimately, right now, the only team I could say is the Bucks that are even in their realm, right? That's the only team. And Miami made it in the East last year, and they beat the Bucks. So that's big for me to say. I will say if the Heat are able to land a Dame Lillard, then the Heat are right in there, probably should be the favorites in the East. But right now, they don't have Dame Lillard, and they beat the Bucks, so I'm not going to give it to the Bucks. And the Celtics win at least they went 7 games with the Miami Heat last year. So for me, they're the best team overall when it comes to a roster. They got a lot of talent over there. I think Porzingis was an amazing pickup for Boston. So for me, it makes sense. Why not run it back, man? Why not give the guy his bag that he's earned? But lastly, obviously, what everyone's debating is, did he earn this contract? Was, even though he got that All-NBA status, did he earn it? Did he, watching him, do you think he is a $304 million player? And I don't know, mainly because I don't know how many players really are a $300 million worth that much money. There's only a couple. I would say the MVP should have been. Obviously, that number was the highest number that he could have got at the time was 276. So before that was the biggest contract in the league. I'm just going to, throw some numbers at y'all. They're in these playoffs this year. In 20 games, JB averaged 22.7 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game, 3.4 assists, 1.1 steals. And then he also only shot 49.6% from the field and 35.4% from 3. And I also have, I think his turnovers was at 66. So, you look at those numbers and you definitely question some things. 22.7 is not bad. I mean, you could take that in points as your second option. But everyone watched last year. We watched JB. We saw what he did early on, struggling from the 3. And once again, it's these things that kind of crept back into his game that we saw against the Warriors. Even though I would place the blame of the Warriors loss more on JT than JB, that finals loss, because JT just didn't show up. But it happens. Superstars go through slumps, but JT obviously proved this year that he is that guy. JB is that guy. He's a dog, but the same problems showed up this year in the playoffs as they did against the Warriors, and that is inconsistency from 3 and just difficulty with handles, especially when driving to the rim. And for a guy that, everyone knows what JB can do once he's at the rim. That dude he's a skywalker. That dude can fly. He's an amazing finisher with his layups, and he uses that threat, that speed when he attacks the rim to get into that mid-range area that is also one of his best parts of his game. So for me, seeing, not enough improvement there definitely makes me wonder, makes me kind of hold back on, was he worth all that money? And all I can say to it is, you had to pay the guy. So you're playing this tough game of, do we not pay this guy because he wasn't the superstar player that we want him to be right now? I think he's only, how old is he? 26, I think. Let me look this up. I should have had this pulled up. Jalen Brown's age. He is 26 on the money. So, He's only 26, guys. He's signing this contract before he's even technically entered his prime. You can say around 28 to 30 is that prime age when your body is physically at its peak and your mind is mentally at its peak. You've got that experience. You understand, he's had championship experience already. It's so crazy at this age. So for him to sign that contract before even entering his full-on prime, that's awesome for him. And like I said, you had to pay the guy. Like, someone was going to pay him. If the Celtics didn't pay him that much money, someone was going to pay him. Supermax wise, it's 5 years, so that 304 is a little. Only the Celtics could offer him $304 million because that 5th year. So obviously, but teams would have offered him the same amount of money annually per year as the Celtics did. So for me, you definitely are like, man, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a second NBA, All-NBA, second team All-NBA player. It's a lot. But like I said, someone was going to pay him. The Celtics really wanted to keep that duo together. I think it was a smart idea to keep the duo together. When it comes to the money, I can't question it because, once again, like I've said 3 or 4 times now, someone was going to pay JB. Might as well be the Celtics keep that duo together. Let's try and run it back, man. As a Lakers fan, I don't want to see it, but my brother is a Celtics fan, so I have to have a small, very, very small, okayness with the Celtics. So good for JB, though. I'm happy for him, man. I've watched that guy grow, and, he's got to fix those things, though. Fix that inconsistency from 3 in the playoffs and fix that handle when he drives. Then he might be worth all every single dime in that contract. Let's move on to another deal that happened. Actually, let's skip that. We're going to go to the other massive mega deal that happened, and this was in the NFL. Happened late today. The Los Angeles Chargers and quarterback Justin Herbert agree to terms on a 5-year, $262.5 million contract extension. Wow. A lot of money being thrown around today, man. Adam Schefter reported it. The deal includes $133.7 million fully guaranteed, $93.7 million with an injury guarantee, and jumping potentially to $218.7 million guaranteed in full. Herbert deal makes him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL based on average annual value at $52.5 million. And in year 1, the man is going to make $100 million. Wow. Thoughts on the deal? Deserved. And you gotta give him the money, just like the Jaylen Brown. You had to give him the money to keep him in LA. He has all the talent in the world, man. Justin Herbert has all the talent in the world. He has had all that talent in the world since Oregon. I saw it. CDM saw it when we were watching him in college. He just didn't get to shine with the Ducks as much as he's gotten to in the NFL. With that system in Oregon, it just didn't show off that talent. He had that strong arm ability, that ability to just – and they talk about how he had leadership problems. I haven't heard a bad thing about this guy since he's been in the league either. So now, though, you got your bag. It's deserved. Everyone knows the talent you have. Your talent is definitely worth that much money. Now it's about winning the big game, brother. And I don't want to put the blame or nothing on Justin Herbert because, by all means, this is not on Herbert for not winning the big games and getting to the big games yet. This is on the front office. This is on coaching. Staley has got to prove some people wrong. He's got to prove some people wrong this year, man. Staley has got to prove some people wrong this year because, man, oh man, that guy, he is. I don't know. I hate to throw around the word hot seat, but if there is a guy on the hot seat right now, it's got to be him, man. That's got to be him because I can't be seeing these 4th and 6 attempts on your own 30-yard line anymore. You got a guy that you just paid almost $300 million to. You got to give him the best chance to win, and you got to give him the opportunity to allow you to win. It's more like it. Put him in the situations to be clutch. Justin Herbert has that ability to win games by himself. There's a very select amount of quarterbacks in this league that are, superstar, can carry a team on your back, And I would throw, obviously, Patrick Mahomes in there. I would throw Joe Burrow in there. I would throw a Jalen Hurts in there. And, I wouldn't throw Josh Allen in there. I would throw Aaron Rodgers in there probably still. And then you got to throw Justin Herbert in there with talent-based. Obviously not proven it yet. He hasn't had the opportunity to prove that yet. Still, though, I mean, man, did he earn it? Yes, he earned it with his skill set. He is so dang talented, man, and the losses are not on him. All you got to see, though, is that improvement every single year. See him develop every single year. You had to pay him the money. Someone was. It's a very similar situation to Jaylen Brown. Someone was going to pay him the money. Someone was going to. Chargers make the move before anyone else could. Smart move for the Chargers, obviously. He's earned it. Now he's got to win and get at least second in the division. I've got the Broncos as a sneaky team winning that second in their division behind the Chiefs. So if the Chargers, they got to get second. They got to get second in the division, man. They cannot miss the playoffs. They can't miss the playoffs, first of all. If they are the third seed and you still make the playoffs, cool. That's cool. You got to at least make the playoffs, man. This team has got a lot of talent, a lot of good players. Didn't they draft Quentin Johnston? So, I mean, come on. The guy's got talent everywhere. Like, they got to win. They brought in the coach from from Dallas. Oh no, I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, there it is. Hang on. Kellen Moore, goodness sakes, couldn't remember it. If Red was in here, it would definitely help me out there. So you brought in talent to help out with Justin. Now it's about getting him there. I'm not saying they got to be number one in the division. The Chiefs are in that division. It's going to be hard to even get second in the division, in my opinion, because I think the Broncos are going to be very good this year. So you got to at least make the playoffs with this guy. Give him a chance in the playoffs is all I'm saying. If you give Justin Herbert a chance in the playoffs, good things are going to happen, I think. Earned, deserved, every single dime. 5 years, $262.5 million extension. Good job on the Chargers, and good job, Justin Herbert. I'm happy for you, brother. Like I said, he didn't get to prove himself fully when he was at Oregon, and you like to see a guy come into the league and just show out. So, congrats, my man. All right, let's get some other deals that happened today as well, some smaller deals, and these were also in the NFL. We talked about it last week in the running back situation. One of those running backs got a little bit of clarity for this year, and he showed up day one to training camp, unlike Josh Jacobs. Running back Saquon Barkley. The New York Giants have agreed to terms on a one-year deal worth $11 million. Barkley's new deal is worth $10.1 million fully guaranteed, including a signing bonus, and there is the $909,000 incentives included, an equal amount paid for 3 categories. So he has to hit these 3 stats to earn it. He has to have 1,350 rushing yards and a playoff berth and 11 touchdowns and 65 receptions. So they are telling him, hey, you got to be everywhere, man. We need you everywhere. We need you on the field. More like it. I like that, though, because, putting those incentives in there, he's obviously going to go and try for it. $1 million is a nice little topper, especially for a running back. Like we've talked about, these guys are no guaranteed money barely anymore, it feels like. Even though he's got a $10 million guarantee, you take as much as you can get. So you like to see that, though. You like to see, Saquon get a nice little bag this year. Obviously, though, it does feel a little bit like they're just pushing back the problem to next year. And some people will say that this is a prove-it deal, and others would say that this is just a deal to, put more wear and tear on his body so you don't want to pay him even more. So it definitely makes me wonder why just not sign him to a 2-year deal and just cut it off there, or maybe even a 3-year deal and just live with it. If you're going to give him $11 million, I mean, I don't know if he would have taken the $11 million, but understandable. But like I said, I'm happy for Saquon, man, for showing up to camp and to see him and the Giants come to an agreement this year. He deserved it. Like we talked about, if and last week we talked about between Josh Jacobs, Saquon, and Tony Pollard, who earned it the most. I said Josh Jacobs, and I still believe that Josh Jacobs, out of those three running backs, deserved a bag more than anyone, mainly because he was Offensive Player of the Year last year, and he led the league in rushing yards and all-purpose yards. But Saquon Barkley was still very good last year, and he was a very big part to that offense last year. And I know he's one of those guys that it's hard to pay Saquon multiple years and trust that he will be on the field. He's had an injury history, but a lot of these running backs do. So when it comes to it, do you commit to him long-term after this year? I don't know if they will, and I don't know if I would, but if he comes out and shows out and he wins an Offensive Player of the Year, the Giants are going to have a big conundrum on their hands where they will dang near have to, because I don't know what would happen to that front office between them and Giants fans if Saquon leads this team offensively to something special next year. They're going to have to pay the guy. So at the end of the day, I'm just happy for him, and I just kind of wanted to highlight him getting his deal with the Giants kind of done for this year. He's at training camp, so they don't have to worry about that now. So all they can worry about is winning. I think that's a smart move for the Giants, a team that, even though no one's giving them a chance in that division, and I don't think they'll be second or nothing. But they were a playoff team last year. Like, they were good. They were good, and I know it's kind of comes down to Daniel Jones kind of growing every single year, but the Giants are good, man. They made some nice signings. Darren Waller, they had some good signings this offseason. So, I think it's smart kind of let them focus fully on winning some football games this year. So, shout out to the Saquon Barkley getting his deal, and shout out to the Giants getting it done. Let's see if they can win some football games this year. Let's go to my favorite team. The New Orleans Saints kind of threw a little bit of a curveball at me today. They did do one signing I thought was very smart, bringing in Trey Turner, offensive lineman, former 5-time Pro Bowler. I thought that was a great deal. And then the curveball was bringing back 36-year-old Jimmy Graham on a 1-year deal. That one felt good, though. Felt good. Obviously, it feels like a 1-year and retirement deal. At first, I thought it was a 1-day deal, and I would have been like, that's a little odd. Even though I love Jimmy. I mean, I was watching Jimmy highlights after the deal and was like, oh, man, he truly was the best tight end in the league at one point. For a single year. I don't want to act like, because that was Gronk's prime, so I don't want to act like an idiot. Like, I know how amazing Gronk was back then, but man, those couple of years where he was on his top of his game for the Saints, man, whew, he was special. He was special. So, but let's get into it. As a lifelong Saints fan, I love to see Jimmy back in the black and gold with the team that drafted him. You love to see a team kind of come back. A player come back to the team he was drafted by and kind of make one little last run when it comes to it. But, on the field, though, that's where it really matters. And I'm just kind of interested to see what his role will really be. Is he going to be just a depth guy? Is he going to be a red zone guy? Because when you look at it, the Saints, honestly, now, at one point in the offseason, had a very, very, very weak tight end room. Now it becomes a kind of a crowded tight end room. With Juwan Johnson, Foster Moreau, Taysom Hill, and now Jimmy Graham. It's a very interesting tight end room now. I know Sean Payton was the guy that really led our offenses back in the day, but Pete Carmichael was there. He was the offensive coordinator technically, and he runs a very similar offense. And that offense loves tight ends, man. They love it. That a lot of tight ends had a lot of success in the Saints system. So I'm not surprised by it because of that. Like, the Saints use a lot of depth. And you look at a Juwan Johnson, he's going to be tight end one. I mean, he proved himself last year with the amount of touchdowns he got, kind of busting onto the scene as much as he did. And, signing Foster Moreau, a two-way blocking / good receiving tight end as well, but he's a very good blocking tight end. Boy from LSU kind of coming home. And then, what Taysom Hill brings. He's going to play a little bit of tight end, and he's shown that he's pretty dang good at blocking and, receiving as well. And, you look at Jimmy Graham, what's his value to this team? And, I could truly, even though he's 36, I know he's older, and that's really old, not really old, but pretty old for being an NFL player in such a physical sport, and a guy that has had injury problems since leaving the Saints. When you look at his role, I do think he could be a very valuable red zone threat for this team. You know, with a Juwan Johnson and him on the field, that's a tough matchup for teams, man, because Juwan, he's an athlete. He's a smaller but very fast tight end, you know, height-wise. And then Jimmy Graham, everyone knows how big that guy is. I think he's 6'5", 6'6", so big tight end. So red zone, he was a master with the Saints. I was watching those highlights. Like, dang, man, that dude was unstoppable in the red zone, man. I forgot how unstoppable he was with Drew Brees for those couple of years. So for me, it makes sense if they're going to use him as a red zone threat. That was a thing the Saints had a major problem with last year. You know, getting to the red zone and they just couldn't do anything. That was on Pete, new offense, Pete not having a consistent quarterback. You know, I like Andy, but, you know, Andy could only take you so far. You didn't have a Mike Thomas. Chris Olave was your number one. And besides that, I mean, you had guys like Rashid Shaheed, but you know, he came in late in the season. He's a burner. He's not a guy that's going to go win a jump ball in the red zone. And Chris Olave is amazing, but that's not his skill set really either. So, you know, you getting back a Michael Thomas, who's a red zone monster. And Juwan Johnson was the Saints' best red zone threat last year. So you bring in a guy like Jimmy Graham, who that's where he thrives, is the red zone. It makes sense to me. It makes sense to me. If they use him in that way, I get it. I like the move. When it comes to Trey Turner, just a solid move. You know, the Saints' offensive line was definitely a little underwhelming last year, you know, for those last 6 years of the Sean Payton era. I mean, that was the last thing you ever worried about, was having, you know, offensive line problems. You know, they had a lot of talent on that offensive line. They drafted well there. And, you know, the Saints have had a lot of luck on health and when it comes to offensive line. And last year that caught up to them, not because, you know, the offensive line wasn't bad. It was just the lack of depth. You know, we lost players to injury, and that really caught up to the Saints. So, you know, bringing in depth, they've already brought in some more depth before this, you know, drafting some guys as well. So it makes sense to make this move. You get a guy that's, you know, even if he's not a starter and he might not even get playing time this year, he's a former star offensive lineman. He knows the technique better than anyone. Bringing in a guy like that is so good for the young guys that are on the offensive line for the Saints. And his experience and locker room presence, man. I mean, that just bodes well for the Saints offensive line. So I think it's very, very good for the New Orleans Saints, those two deals. And, you know, we'll see. Who dat, baby? We'll see. Let's move on, though, to Michigan and the NCAA. So negotiations on a resolution to an investigation into the Wolverines' recruiting practices that could result in a 4-game suspension of Coach Jim Harbaugh. This is all surrounding recruiting talks during the COVID dead period. A lot of teams got busted on that. So I'll kind of run through. If he were to serve that 4-game suspension, the games that he would miss would be East Carolina, Bowling Green, UNLV, and Big Ten opponent Rutgers. So the thoughts on the situation and would it affect Michigan's season? You know, like I said, this is not the first team to get busted on this. You know, this is kind of for me a join the group type of thing. As we've seen LSU, Tennessee, Air Force, and there's been more schools, but those are kind of the main schools that have been hit pretty hard on the recruitment issues during that COVID dead period. And there's definitely going to be a lot more to come out in the coming years, I imagine. Still, though, I'm not kind of going to justify it. You'd never want to see anything like this in NCAA. You never want to see recruiting issues and, people cheating the system in a certain way. COVID dead period, that's a weird one, so I'm not going to hold, some light to it or nothing, like some bad light to it. Like, every team and everyone's looking for a slight edge, especially NCAA, when you got the juggernauts like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. You got these squads that are racking in talent every single year. You gotta compete in some way, so you look for a certain edge. So I'm not gonna be some guy that's gonna be like, oh, you're terrible, I will never support Michigan or LSU or Tennessee or Air Force and all these teams. It's like, these teams are going to get busted. This has been a thing that's happened for a long time, and it won't stop. The NCAA has to come down on these teams, and it happens. So, when it comes to the season for Michigan, let's get off of that topic. When it comes to the season, I don't. No, there's Mamba. Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to stop for a second, y'all. When it comes to the season, though, I do not imagine they will lose any of those 4 games. Looking at those opponents when it comes to East Carolina, Bowling Green, UNLV, and Rutgers, I don't think Michigan will have a problem with those teams without Jim Harbaugh. But when it comes to later in the season, that's when I think we could see the impact of that suspension. Because, yeah, they're probably going to be 4-0 after those 4 games. But what losing a coach is like, and I'm not going to act like I'm some locker room expert. I mean, I've never really been in one, but I can't imagine losing a coach for 4 games in a season, and also for a Big Ten opponent, is good for your team, And I know they'll probably be resilient, but when you look at the teams that they face later in the season, Michigan State, Penn State, obviously Ohio State, there's some other teams in there that can give them a run for their money. I think that's when it catches up to the team. Even though Michigan is talented, I like their squad, I like their roster, but seeing something like this, it's hard to overcome. It's hard to overcome later in the season because you build that camaraderie, whatever the word is. You build that, that group environment over the season, and when you're tested early on, like just say if that Rutgers game is close and Jim Harbaugh's not there to pull it through for them, give them motivation or something, those are those moments that you miss out on when your coach is not there. So for me, I think it does impact the Michigan season in a pretty big way when it comes to facing a Michigan State, a Penn State, and Ohio State. Like that's a tough break for Michigan fans. I don't want to look too much into missing 4 games, but for me, I mean, I have a hard time believing that they will just wax all those teams again this year. Not wax, but beat those teams again this year and be undefeated after losing your coach. And Jim Harbaugh is a hell of a coach, so losing a coach for 4 games, that's tough. That's tough. And yeah, I'm not saying they're going to lose those games, but when it comes to those Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State, I find it hard to believe that they're going to win all 3 of those games. I don't know which one they'll lose. I'm going to put my money on the Ohio State game mainly because I don't even think I would have picked Michigan to beat Ohio State in the first place because Ohio State's they're good this year. I like McCord, their quarterback. They got a lot down on that squad. Harrison, stud, could be the second pick in the draft. So, overall, I think it does affect, the season that Michigan will have later on instead of early on, like some people may think. But I think that will do it for our massive news of the day. I think when it comes to deals and stuff, obviously we have the biggest news and scariest news of the day. I want to just shed some light on it. Won't stay too long on it. Everyone in the world has reported on it, so I do want to just say Bronny James, the eldest son of LeBron James, suffered a cardiac arrest on Monday at USC. It was actually yesterday when it happened, on Monday. But he is out of the ICU and is in stable condition. Like I said, I'm not going to spin forever on this. And, all I can say is just I hope he fully recovers. And you just never want to see this. And I just hope we can see him, be the man that he was, a young man that he was before the incident. And hopefully we can see him on the court at some time. But like I said, this is an issue that has been, highlighted very hard since the Damar Hamlin situation. We use that word anomaly in sports when it comes to these type of things, and we do have to understand it's a rare occurrence. And I was watching ESPN this morning, and a doctor came on. I think it was for an ABC affiliate. A doctor came on and talked about how many cardiac arrests happen per year among athletes, and it's in that 100 to 150 range. And you look at the amount of athletes we have in this world. Yeah, it's a small number, but that's 150 athletes that are still suffering this problem. And even though those statistics are low, it's a reality that we have to understand and we have to respect. It scares everyone to death. I cannot imagine being, a parent with a kid that's an athlete. So I just want to send my wishes to LeBron and Savannah. I know that this was tough for them, and it's tough for that whole entire family. I just want to to kind of just wrap it up. Even though He's an athlete that is the son of LeBron James, and I know people have their feelings towards LeBron James on and off the court. They can feel any way they want, but that people have to understand that he's an amazing father, and you can't debate that he's an amazing and loving father. He has done amazing raising his 2 kids, or 3, including Ziri, Bryce, Bronny, and Ziri. No one can question that he's an incredible father, and I know people feel a certain way about him on the floor and off the floor with some of everything that surrounds LeBron James. He's such a big presence, and I'm not asking you to like the guy, but I just want y'all to just remind yourselves that these are humans, and Bronny is a human, and that's all we can remind ourselves of. He might be a little bit bigger of a human, and he might get more highlights and more publicity when anything that happens to the guy and stuff. So I just want to send my wishes and prayers, and I understand that this happens to more than just superstars and big faces like Bronny James, and we have to understand that even though it happens to Bronny, if it happens to Bronny, it can still happen to the high school in the small school in Iowa. It can happen to anyone, and we need to understand these are all humans, and we are all experiencing the same thing. So I just want to send my prayers and wishes, best wishes to the family and to all those who have been affected by any situation like cardiac arrest. This is bigger than just sports. Anyone that suffered anything like this, any sickness, any condition, send my prayers to them, and hope speedy recoveries to Bronny, of course, and all those affected by any situation like this. But that'll do it for the talks on the massive news today. A lot of stuff happened, so I had to get through a little bit of that stuff. I stuck a little bit longer than I imagined on it. Let's get to some fighting, though. We got some big fights. Massive boxing match between Errol Spence and Terence Crawford. The welterweight championship is on the line. Undisputed, baby. You love to see these matchups, man. After the long wait, we get the biggest boxing event of the year, and probably for me, like I said, I'm still a novice. It'll probably be the biggest boxing match I will have witnessed with my own eyes live. I've seen some big matches, but I have not got to see anything like this, I don't think. Probably the biggest boxing match I've witnessed live has probably been the Fury Wilder trilogy, and watching Usyk on his run recently. So I can't say that I've got to watch an absolute superstar, just the best of the best, compete against each other in boxing, because we're in a weird sport with boxing with the Jake Paul stuff, where that's considered boxing. I don't want to take anything away from Jake Paul or anything, but seeing a Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence in their prime, gosh, it's so rare now, y'all. And everyone knows that who understands boxing. We get these matchups, and sometimes it's just too late. One of the guys is over the hill, or one of the guys is too young. We saw this with Pacquiao and Mayweather. Pacquiao wasn't in his prime anymore, and Mayweather was, Mayweather was still Mayweather. I mean, Mayweather's still boxing now at an elite level, and we saw Canelo a little too young for Mayweather, even though that fight was required for Canelo to get where he's at now. It's just awesome to see two guys in their prime, and they're pretty much their best of their best. Spence has still got some time to grow and stuff, but I mean, this is physical primes. I mean, it doesn't get better than this. Let's break it down, man. I'm not gonna come out here and give you all the thoughts and what I think is gonna exactly happen, with who's gonna use a nicer jab, who's gonna move the best and stuff, and who's gonna slip the punches the best. I'm not gonna be doing that. That's not my style. I don't want to act like I understand boxing better than some people. But I do know that this is an amazing matchup, and styles make fights, and this is a heck of a style between these two guys. After all the turmoil to get here, man, it's just awesome. It's awesome we get to see this. Obviously, everyone knows about the car accident that Errol Spence was in 2019, and for him to come back, 4 years later, in a car crash that easily could have taken his life, in the crazy event that he goes through the windshield, and that saves his life, they say. So those kind of unbelievable events, you're just happy to see a guy like Spence with all the talent in the world and beyond just the talent and his skill set in sports. Like, you just love to see a guy like that, just be able to be alive and still obviously give us the highlights that everyone loves to see in that boxing ring. So I'm just happy to see Errol Spence in good health and able to, come in and fight Bud Crawford. But when it comes to into the ring, let's get a look into this. For me, when it comes to prediction-wise, obviously Crawford has been more active over these past few years, mainly due to that car accident, obviously. And I do think that will definitely be an advantage for him. There's definitely a thing, the ring rust it's a real thing, and people don't believe it, but it's true. Not being in there for a long time compared to a guy that's been in there multiple times over the past few years, it definitely can help out. It definitely is. It's an advantage, and for you that comfortability in the ring, and when it comes to the style, everyone knows how smooth, how quick, combinations Crawford has, and that sneaky power. It's combinations and then power. He breaks you down and finds the shot. He's so smooth and so fast. I've been watching a lot of his fights recently, and you see him against against Sean Porter, and oh my goodness, even late he's able to finish a guy like that, and I think it was the 9th or 10th round. So you love to see it. His footwork, his combinations. I do think that's really going to cause a little bit of a problem for Spence. Everyone, if you watch Spence, he's a little bit more robotic. He's a big welterweight. He's a big guy. So I do think that size will give Crawford a little bit of problems early. But like I said, that speed and elusiveness that Bud brings I think that'll be the end of the story, and it'll be late, kind of. So I think we're gonna see something early where I think we're gonna see Errol get some confidence early. But you know how Bud is. He's a fighter, man. He's gonna go out there and he's gonna take your punch and he's gonna let you do your thing, and he's gonna just hit you combination, and then once he feels that he's got that opportunity, he's going to take it, and he's going to hit you with one shot that's just going to change the fight. And I do think he's going to hit him with one of those combinations, and it's going to be a lethal combo, I think, and it's going to change the fight from there on out. I don't know, like I'm saying, if I'm a betting man, I don't know if it's a KO. If I would tell you right now, I would probably go Bud via decision, but I ain't doing that. I'm saying Bud gets that KO finish in the 8th or 9th round, y'all. I'm looking at these odds, obviously, here. Errol Spence has plus 200 by decision, and Terence has a plus 165 by decision. Bud has a plus 350 by KO. Errol's is at plus 600, so obviously Terence is the more of a KO guy here. When you look at the by rounds, that number really starts to shrink for Terence as it gets later in the fight, because Terence he just brings you to those deep waters, man. He will just take you in those deep waters and find a way to finish you. And for Errol, I mean, the numbers they're weird. His range of victory, if it's gonna be in by KO or by KO finish, he's gonna be looking around betting wise. It's in that 6 to round 11 range. They really round 10. My bad. 6 to 10. That's where they think his best odds are. I think if he gets in there, he's gonna have to work it early. Terence is so fast, man, and when you look at Terence, like I said, his numbers just shrink as the fight goes on. And his best odds are in the 9th and 10th round. That's why I think about the 8th round, we'll see something that hurts. We'll see something that hurts Spence. And I think in that that 9th or 10th round, I think we see Bud come in there and finish him off. So I'm going Bud, 8th or 9th round KO. So we'll see what happens. I'm just more than anything excited that I get to watch a boxing event like this. First time in my life I'll get to see something like this. Let's get into it, though, something a little bit more comfortable talking about. I hope I didn't just make a bunch of boxers boxing fans' ears bleed there. I think I did a good enough research on that. Let me know if I sound like an idiot. But let's get into this UFC. I'm much more comfortable talking about this. UFC 291 in Salt Lake City, Utah. Got an amazing main card. And, sometimes I don't talk through the whole main card, but I'm going to do it because I know every single fighter here. I've been really a massive UFC fan for the past, it's been a minute now. So I know a lot of the guys now. I watch every single weekend, whether there is a fight, free fights, and obviously main cards. So it's awesome. This is the second main card of the month of August. I mean, July. Jeez, don't wish away July yet, Nathan. So I'm just excited. The BMF belt is up between Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. Obviously, I'll get into that one last. We're going to start at the bottom of the bill here when it comes to the main card. We got Michael Chiesa versus Kevin Holland. Another guy that both of those guys, if you're a MMA fan, UFC fan, you know both of them. And both of them are hard not to like. Both are truly finishers, that's for sure. They really like to go out there and find their ways to win in their own ways. Michael is definitely a submission specialist, and Kevin Holland, the hands are so fast. He tried to go out there and box and kickbox against Wonder Boy, which is another guy on the bill too. So if you're going out there to do that, you got a lot of confidence in your hands and kicks and stuff. So I praise a guy like that. But the underrated thing with Kevin Holland is that guy's a legit jiu-jitsu guy. I mean, he could definitely submit a lot of guys. And yeah, is he going to submit Michael? I don't know about that, but I think we'll see some surprises when it comes to that fight. If this fight somehow gets to the ground, if Michael is able to get this thing to the ground, I think he's going to be a little shocked how good Kevin is on the ground. I think that's going to be a little bit of a shocker for him, and I don't even know if it ever gets to the ground or nothing. So for me, I'm going to get this one over with. I think Kevin Holland gets an early finish in this one. I think the hands and kicks and hand speed and defense is going to be a little too good for Michael early, and I think he catches him with one of those hooks of his, man. Might be something crazy, but I think he keeps it tight. I think he keeps it smooth. I think he gets out there he just finishes this thing off. And he wants to start this card with a bang. You know how Kevin Holland is. Kevin Holland is a performer, man. Above all, I know he's going out there to try and win, but that dude is a guy that is trying to excite fans. So I got this one round 1 KO for Kevin Holland. Let's go to the next fight in this main card. Man, this one's hitting heartstrings. I've got two guys that I like, but one guy I like not a lot more, but I like more. And for me, these odds are, let's see. I wanted to pull them up again. Let's see. Yeah, these odds are insane to me. Craziness, I find. Bobby Green versus Tony Ferguson. Bobby Green is a minus 400 favorite. And I know Bobby Green's a hell of a striker, y'all. I know that. But, man, we are really starting to ride up Tony. I know he's on a losing streak. It's a pretty bad one in his last two fights. Obviously the nasty front kick KO against Michael Chandler and getting submitted by Nate Diaz in their last matchup. But that was in September, man. That's a long time ago. I'm starting to feel a different version in this thing. I think we're going to see a motivated El Kukui, man. I think this is going to be I think Tony is at the point where he's accepted what has happened to him. This fall off it's real. You don't want to act like it's not real. So I think he's to the point where let's just get a win. Let's not look at what this win could get me. Let's get a win. Let's just get back on track. I think this is a decent style matchup for him too. I know Bobby Green is a heck of a striker, and he's not going to be looking to take this to the ground at all. Where Tony can find some nasty submissions of his, but I think we're going to see something. I know what we saw against Nate was not the most promising, but he didn't look bad on the feet. He didn't look bad, and then obviously Nate submits him and stuff late in that fight, but for me, when you look at it, it's stylistically, Bobby is a dog, and he's gonna try and find your chin. He's gonna touch you, and look for a shot. But if you're looking at these odds, just don't let them sway you. That's all I'll say when it comes to this fight. I'm not gonna overspeak when it comes to it. I think this is a good matchup for Tony. Looking at it, Bobby Green is plus 125 via points. For Tony Ferguson is plus 600 on points, and then Tony, his odds are so bad, it's crazy. I'm a little shocked by that. KO finish, Bobby Green's plus 195, so that's pretty high. They really think this one's gonna be done in the first round too. Bobby Green is plus 380 to win in the first round. Man, I don't believe these numbers, man. I think right now, in my opinion, we'll be seeing a different, motivated in a different way. I think he's motivated in a different way. It's not like a championship motivation. I think this is a respect, a legacy motivation for Tony to come out here and just kind of, because he looked good against Michael Chandler, before he got his face kicked off, he looked good against Michael Chandler in that first round. I rewatched that fight. Tony won. I mean, everyone knows I watched. He won that first round, and dropping Chandler. So, I mean, Tony's got bricks in his hands. So, in my opinion, how I see this fight going, I got Tony winning this one and getting back in that win column. If I'm a betting man, I'd probably lean decision, even though those odds are horrendous, which also might motivate you to do that. I'm seeing something, Bobby might overswing on a shot. I'm thinking maybe Tony hits him with one of those razor elbows, one of those elbows, maybe drops him to the ground, and I think Tony might get to the ground and find his way to maybe a Darce choke or an arm bar or maybe even a rear naked choke. I think he gets off one of his submissions for a victory here, and we see a victory, a win in the column for Tony Ferguson out here on the 29th. So I'm excited. I think Tony Ferguson gets the job done against Bobby Green. Let's get to the next fight of the bill. This one is this is an amazing matchup, man. And you got two of the craziest strikers in the division. Everyone knows how amazing Wonder Boy Thompson is. Stephen Thompson is. The karate background is an unbelievable striker. And then Michel Pereira, he is an incredibly dangerous, I'd say, fighter. I mean, that dude he leaves caution to the wind, So for me, it's just such an underrated fight. I think it's a fight that's not even being built up enough, and that's not probably on the fighters. But Wonder Boy is one of my favorite fighters, and he is still elite at 40 years old. And it's a hell of a matchup, like I said, due to their similarities. I would say, like I said, Pereira is just a more dangerous version of Wonder Boy. He's got those kicks. He's got the punches. He's got the kicks, but it's a lot more wild, I remember when he did I think he did like a front flip kick into the stomach, which I think is technically illegal, and they didn't call it illegal. But I remember seeing that in a fight one time with Pereira. So it's a fun matchup. But when it comes to it in the ring, I think the biggest thing that we'll see, being in Utah, Salt Lake City, elevation, I think fatigue is going to get to these guys as they are both strikers. I mean, both of these guys have had problems with fatigue in the past, and specifically Pereira. I mean, that guy, I've seen that guy gas even after the first round, not even making it out of the first round, and gas out. So, and that's mainly due to his ridiculous attacks. It's due to him overswinging, just too many strikes, too many big strikes, too many wild attacks. So I think if he can hamper that down, he gives himself a lot better of a chance to win. But I think Wonder Boy's technique, I think he's going to be more measured. I think he just takes his time to take apart Pierre in this one, man. I think slowly but surely we'll win the race here for Wonder Boy. Just tap, 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 find his way, and look for one of those shots when Pierre is overswinging. I think we see a decision here once again for Wonder Boy, but I would not be surprised if you see maybe Pereira hurts Wonderboy early with one of his wild attacks, and we see one of those Thompson counters that he has shown before that could just end the fight immediately. One counter could finish this one. So I think we go to a decision win for Wonderboy, but don't be surprised if Wonderboy hits him with one of those counters for a win here. So I got Wonderboy taking the cake in that fight. Let's get into the co-main event of the evening. This one's insane. Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. Oh, man. This one is so damn hard to call, y'all. Alex Pereira is making his debut at the light heavyweight division. Everyone talking about how massive he was for middleweight, and you saw it against Izzy, even though Izzy put him out, and you can make the case that weight cut led to him being knocked out like that. Cutting 40 pounds. He literally weighs 125 pounds normally. I want y'all to understand the middleweight division is 185 pounds. That's a lot of weight to be cutting for a fight. And, you cut the weight, and then you just put it all back on the next day. That you're dehydrating your body. It's so bad for your body. I think making this move up to light heavyweight will help a lot of things, specifically the chin for Pereira. And there's definitely a case that there's some things to look at when it comes to the jump up, because the biggest thing is, he's technically is a light heavyweight, but he's not really fought there. So he has not felt that strength. He hasn't felt that power of the light heavyweights. We saw what happened to Izzy, but Izzy didn't put on the weight. Izzy, when he fought Jan for the light heavyweight belt, I think he only weighed 195 for that fight. So he didn't even go up to the full 205 limit for the light heavyweight that championship against Jan. So, and then you saw how dominant Jan was on the ground. Jan was special once that thing got to he wasn't even, all he had to do was just hold him because he was just so much stronger with all that size. So, and I've been watching Pierre over this past week on, the embedded and stuff, and the biggest thing he talked about was strength. It's not about size, it's about strength. You gotta know how to use that strength in other ways. And these two guys are known for their power when it comes to punching. But if this thing becomes a kickboxing match, it's hard not to take Alex. I love Jan, and Jan is a tank. He's got some nasty leg kicks. He will kick on your bone. He doesn't care, dude. He will kick on a checked leg and just walk right through it. That dude is he's made of titanium. It feels like that Polish power. Power. It's no joke. That Polish power is no joke. He's put a lot of people out with it. It's an amazing matchup, but I really do think that the grappling is going to be the ultimate decider in this fight. We saw what Izzy did in their first MMA matchup for the belt when Alex won by TKO, but we saw what Izzy was able to do to him on the ground. Alex looked like he didn't know what to do, and that was a long time ago. I'll give you that. It's been over a year and stuff, so Alex has definitely learned and improved on the ground, and obviously he has one of the greatest minds when it comes to groundwork, a guy that beat Jan in Glover Teixeira. So when you got a guy like that, it helps a lot. You can learn so much from a guy in such a little time. And I'm not out here saying that he's going to go out there and out-grapple Jan, or he's going to submit him or anything. But, I just want people to understand that Jan is a great grappler. And, yeah, Glover choked him out, but that's an underrated skill set of his. He's used it multiple times to win fights. And when you get a fighter like Alex that is just so technical on the feet, he is so good. You obviously you can make the case that Alex was winning the second fight against Izzy before Izzy put his lights out. He was hurting the leg again. He was getting some nice shots off to the body. He didn't really clip Izzy in that second fight, but that's how Izzy. That's how Pereira fights, man. He will break you down and he'll find that left hook, man. He is just he's such an amazing striker, technicality wise. And I know how he got knocked out was his technique going out the window. So I do want to see what would happen if he hurts Jan. Is he going to leave all caution to the wind again? Is he going to allow himself to get baited again like Izzy baited him? I don't know. I think that's something you learn from if you're Piera. So when it comes down to it, I think the grappling will definitely be the ultimate decider in this fight. Who will be the better, not even the better grappler, who will win the grappling exchanges? Does Piera have takedown defense? If he's taken to the canvas, can he get up? Can he get this thing back to the feet? Can he fight submissions? Those are those things like we just haven't seen. We haven't got to see from Piera, and Jan has the ability to kind of put those things into fruition. So at the end of the day, though, if this thing stays on the feet, it's power versus power. Either guy can win. If it's on the feet, I'm taking Alex all day because it's hard not to take a two-time kickboxing. There's Mamba again. It's hard not to take a two-time kickboxing champion. But for me, I think Jan's grappling will be the ultimate decider, like I said, and he will get this thing by decision. And I know that one is hard for me. Like I don't ever want to pick against Alex because Alex is one of those guys is like it's almost impossible to pick against. This guy comes in the MMA and just dominates. I think he got the title fight in 5 fights. He got the fast track. Obviously, the history between him and Izzy kind of allowed that to happen. But, that dude, he is so talented. And it's hard not to pick against him. If it's a kickboxing match, I'm going Alex. If it's an MMA match like I think it will be, because this is MMA, I got Jan via decision. Let's see what happens, man. Gosh, it's such an amazing fight. I cannot freaking wait for that one. But let's get into it. The last, but certainly not least, the BMF belt is on the line. The main event of the evening. Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Man, oh man. Oh man, this is such a good fight, y'all. These are two of my favorite fighters in the entire UFC, and these are two of the baddest. I don't want to say the word, but they are the two baddest dudes on the UFC roster right now. I would say you don't get better than these two guys when it comes to just wars. These guys live for wars, and they have fought in them, plenty of them, and understand what it takes to finish them and get through them. So let's get into it, though. Obviously they fought in 2018, and when Dustin found his way to victory in that one. And it was a wild fight, man. It was what everyone thought it would be. Justin Gaethje kind of threw caution to the wind, and Dustin was a lot more measured. The biggest thing for this one, I think, now is I think it's going to be a much more measured fight. I think a lot of people believe that it will be, especially early on. We've seen since that fight how much Justin has improved in his technical fighting sense. He's not like I was watching it, and after that fight, he didn't want to be the most entertaining fighter anymore. He wanted to be a champion, and he's had opportunities at championship status, and he failed at them. Justin as well. That's why this makes this fight so great. Still, in 2020 they were in the top 5. They're still in the top 5 in the lightweight division. The only 2 left since then. So, it's such an awesome matchup to see between these two guys. So, when it comes down to it, I think. Both of them have improved so much. Justin has gotten so technical since that fight, But once again, if he's going to try and outbox Dustin, hands alone, I think we see a masterclass from Poirier because, man, that dude's boxing is the best, I think, in the UFC. I do believe if Justin has a route to victories, he's got to make this messy, but not in the sense how he's made it messy in the past. He needs to make this messy. He needs to get that tie clinch, man. He needs to get these knees into the body like Charles Oliveira had so much success against Dustin Poirier with. Get those uppercuts in the tie clinch. Go find those dirty boxing, man. Elbows, dirty boxing, man. Get in tight. Just rip the body. Find ways to make this thing dirty. Don't let Dustin just be able to poke you from the outside. And I understand that Justin, one of his best moves is the leg kick. He's the best at doing it, and he's got to use that too. He's got to get rid of that power of Poirier, and that's the best way to do it is get rid of the lead leg of a boxer. That takes away a lot of the power, man. So I do think he has to lean into those leg kicks like he did in the first fight. He just needs to use them even more. I don't know more. Just use them again. Got to take away that power somehow from Dustin. I don't think you're gonna gas Dustin, even though Justin trains at elevation in Colorado and Dustin trains in Florida. That elevation might be a problem, but I just don't see Dustin. I don't think don't think that's gonna be a problem for Dustin. He's such a dog, man. I doubt that fatigue will be a thing. And I mean, fatigue's always it will happen when you get these 5-round fights. You'll definitely see guys dwindle as the fight goes on, but I don't think either one of these guys is gonna be just huffing and puffing, and the reason they lose is because they ran out of gas in their tank. So I think you got to take the wind out of Dustin's sails, and the best way for Justin to do that is by leg kicks, getting in tight, finding some uppercuts like that uppercut he against some Michael Chandler, and finding those hooks. Those hooks of Justin are so nasty, man. They are power shots. And so I think if Justin stays technical, and mixes in the dirty boxing, just mixes it in, is selective. We saw against Dustin, the success, we see with the tie clinch, those knees to the body work of Charles Oliveira, Chandler with his blitzes, that really got Dustin in some big time trouble in that first round when they fought. So I think selective messiness, if Justin stays technical with that selective messiness, get some explosions in there, try and see if you get some explosions like Chandler had on Dustin, and get in tight like Charles did, and find some uppercuts, find some knees, find some elbows. If you can find that, I do think Justin Gaethje could get a finish in this fight. But that is the only way I think Justin could find a way to finish this fight. I truly think after everything Dustin's been through, he has learned the most out of all of this. He's still the guy that's just put up the better fights against the fighters that Justin's fought too. I mean, he fought, 3 rounds against Charles. I'm pretty sure about that one. And, Justin got choked out in the first round. Both of them got choked out by rear naked choke, So it's one of those things for me, Chandler, Dustin finished Chandler. Justin went the distance with Chandler. So, some of these fights that they've had since then is you see Dustin's the finisher, man. Justin, even though that dude is a freaking highlight reel and can finish anyone. I don't want to act like that dude doesn't know how to finish anyone. He's finished a lot of people, more than normal, But I think if this is going to come down to a finish, I just think Dustin, I think he gets the job done. What he's learned in his boxing and his Dustin's motivation is so infectious too. I love why he fights, man. He admits, I don't have to do this anymore. I mean, imagine after a McGregor payday, fighting him twice, you don't have to fight ever again, I imagine. So, for me, it's just Dustin, all the fights that he's had against such technical fighters, and I think that's going to push him. I think that's going to push him a little ahead of Justin once again. I think he's just the better fighter when it comes to technical status and stuff. So, I got Dustin, and I think he gets it done earlier than he did in the first fight. I think he gets this one done in the 3rd round, man. TKO finish. And, like I said, it's just styles make fights, and this is an amazing style. And once again, you could not have 2 better dudes facing off in the BMF for the BMF belt, You could not have 2 better dudes facing off for the BMF belt. And I'm just so happy I get to watch this thing live on the 29th. But I think that'll do it for me, y'all. I got Dustin Poirier with a 3rd round finish by TKO. Oh, man. I am so excited for 291. I hope all my predictions are right. If not, they'll probably be all wrong. Never expect me to get these things right, even though I did get a lot of the last card right. So, just saying. I didn't put them live, so you can't fact check me on that. But I swear, I had made my predictions on paper, and I only got one of them wrong. So, if you're a betting person, I would not. I suggest. I don't tell you. I don't beg you. I'm just saying. I might be your best bet if you're going to be going to bet on some UFC events this weekend. But let's get out of here. I don't want to be telling people to go bet on money. That's not a good thing to be doing, betting on fights and stuff. So let's get out of here. Thank y'all for watching once again, The Pound Perspective, and listening. If you are listening, you can watch this, by the way, on YouTube. Oh, my goodness. That's so cool. On Nate Dogg Productions YouTube channel. Go and subscribe as well. We're trying to build that as much as we can. Put out a bunch of clips from last week's pod, and I'm gonna do that again for this week's pod, and clip up everything that I talked about. Hopefully that y'all enjoyed this. I've stuck a lot longer than I imagined, even though there was a lot to talk about. So Obviously, go follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Nate Dogg Sports and Nate Dogg Productions, and Nate Dogg Productions on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. So, go follow us. Stay up to date. Obviously, like I've said the last couple pods, things are going to be changing with the pod, but we will definitely let y'all know and keep y'all up to date when those things happen and how we will make those transitions and make sure that we keep this content rolling for y'all from Nate Dogg Sports and Nate Dogg Productions. But once again, thank y'all for listening to The Pound Perspective, presented by Nate Dogg Sports.
Thanks again for listening to The Pound Perspective, a breath of fresh sports.